What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm super excited to have you here today. We have another awesome guest for you, Lori. Actually, I have to do the same thing with you, Lori, because is it Lori Lynn or is it Lori Timberlake? What was it?
Timberlake Todd. So
Yes.
just as a quick introduction with you, I'm going to stop the video because I'm distracted by how I look. So Todd is my married name, and I'm not married anymore. So I'm not using that, for any kind of public stuff. Timberlake is my maiden name, and Justin took that. So, so I'm actually as the public persona, I'm using Lori Lynn, and Lynn is actually my middle name. So I've been called Lori Lynn, most of my life by family. And so, you can introduce me as Lori Lynn, and we'll go from there.
Okay, awesome. Sorry about that. All right, let's
start. No worries. And in terms of did you want, you have all of your I don't have an official title, but it'll be interesting to hear how I get introduced. So let's do it.
Yeah, well, actually, you'll see, I skipped the bio because, as I say in my intro, I just want to let them hear it from you in your own words. So
sure. Awesome.
I'll give you an opportunity to do that yourself. All right.
Great.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Entrepreneurs Podcast. Today, I have an amazing guest for you, Lori Lynn, another entrepreneur. And I'm going to skip the bio because I want her to share her story with you in her own words. So Lori, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks, Corey. So I just realized that our names rhyme.
Yeah, Lori and Corey. This is a Lori and Corey show.
It's the Lori and Corey show.
Yeah, exactly.
Welcome back.
So Lori, I got a funny story I got to ask you about. In doing a little bit of research for you before jumping on this interview, I read that you gained an interesting nickname in college, Sonic. And
you did dig.
You got to work on a commercial with Frankie Avalon. Can you tell me about that?
It's true. It's all true. Yep. When I was at Austin Peay State University, let's go P, my nickname was actually Sonic. So the first job that I ever worked where they took out taxes, my first big job, was with Sonic Drive-In. And my manager at the time, his name was Stacy Pope. He said, I've never hired anyone who jumped up and down, super excited to get the job until now. I'm like, well, welcome to my life. This is just the beginning. So the only time that I would ever ask off for work was to go to speech competitions or writing competitions with the academic team or beta club, and super nerd. So when this competition rolled around with Sonic Drive-In, they were looking for a National Car Hop of the Year, and it would basically be a spokesperson for Sonic Industries. The winner would get to do a commercial with Frankie Avalon, a national television commercial, and then get to travel all over the country and speak and get scholarship money. And I was like, well, shoot, I'll do a commercial, and I could use some scholarship money. So I had to write an essay, and I had to do a video of myself working, and then just do a video. And so we submitted those, and then I think there were 13,000 applicants, and they narrowed it down into the 13 different regions, and I won the regional competition. We drove an hour and a half to Nashville to be interviewed by a panel of judges, and then one of those judges happened to work Channel 5 News and had a fancy video camera. So as luck would have it, I was able to submit a really professional looking video for the next level of the competition, with a background track and some fun editing, and we went on to the competition for the national Car Hop of the Year was in Nashville, Tennessee, which was only an hour and a half from me. So all of these other girls, there were 6 of us, they narrowed it down to 6. They were flown in from all over the country, and they came in limousines to the Opryland Hotel. And my mom and I are driving up in her little it wasn't a Toyota, it was the equivalent of that. It was the geoprism. So we're driving up, to the big, beautiful Opryland Hotel in this little geoprism. And we get there and we meet the other girls who are part of the competition. And they have judges from all over the country, from, Channel 5, American Airlines, I think Pepsi Cola, Coca-Cola, or I guess it was Coca-Cola because I think that's who their contract was with. And so we spend the weekend together. We're treated like royalty. It was this beautiful, fun, amazing experience. And then there toward the end, the judges asked, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Are you planning to pursue a career? Are you wanting to grow a family? Do you want to pursue an education? And each of the girls chose one thing and talked about what that would look like for them. And it got to me and I was like, I want it all. And of course they laughed because, I'm like 17 and really green. But I'm like, I realize I might not get it all at once, but I want it all, like I want to go to college and I want to get a degree and I want to have a family and I want to have a career. And as it turns out, they picked me. And so I did get to do the national television commercial with Frankie Avalon. I got the scholarship money. I got to travel all over the country that year. And that was a really defining moment and experience and year for me. So yes, I was Sonic in high school. And yeah, I owe it all to Sonic Drive-In.
That's such a cool story, man. Wow. It just shows like when you put yourself out there, you never know what can come back. That's amazing. I mean, out of how many, you said 13,000 or something you got?
That's what I was told. Yeah. That there were 13,000 applicants.
Wow. That's so cool. Awesome. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and fast forward. Right. So you are the Sonic superstar. What are they called? What was it? A hop? What was it called?
Car hop. Yeah.
Yeah.
Car hop. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been to Sonic a few times. And it is always interesting to me how they roll up on rollerblades. I think that's just so cool. It's like such a 50s thing in my mind. But,
yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, yeah, let's fast forward. Okay. And let's talk about, the whole entrepreneurial journey and how'd you end up transition? I'm sure there was some stuff in between, but going from an employee at Sonic to becoming an entrepreneur, explain your journey a little bit for us.
Sure. So I did the traditional route. I got good grades and I went to college, actually had, scholarships covering all of my tuition between, writing. And then I had a work scholarship, academic scholarship. Sonic, jumped in and helped with some of that. And then after I graduated, I was really just wanting something different and something new. And so my first job out of college was actually selling cars. So graduated with honors and not maybe the thing that you would think would be the draw for me. But what I discovered is I love being outside. I love talking to people. I love sales. Sales is really fun. And so I ended up being the only person at this particular dealership who had ever in the history dealership sold a vehicle to one of the professors across the street at Austin P.
Oh, wow.
Right? And what ended up happening there was the professor, he wrote a letter and all of the other salespeople were like, what the heck do I do with this? Like, this isn't a person. This is a letter. And I'm like, ooh, give it to me. Give it to me. So I minored in writing, and like you, I love human psychology. I'm constantly fascinated with, what makes us tick, and why would one person live in complete and utter poverty and somebody else live this extravagant, posh life? And normal is what you grow up with, and so I decided to mirror him, and I took the letter and I answered all of his questions in the form of a letter. And then we just corresponded back and forth until he felt like, okay, let's move forward. So I learned from that experience two things. One, meet people where they are, mirror what they're doing back to them. That's how he felt comfortable communicating. I'm like, all right, let's communicate this way. And by the way, when I was at Sonic, I was the only one who would go to the people who couldn't hear. So I had a girlfriend in high school whose both of her parents were deaf, and her dad would come to Sonic Drive-In every now and then, and he would write his order. And so I would run out there, I'd take the order, I'd bring it in, I'd plug it in for him, I'd bring it back, I'd have a little handwritten note saying, here's your order, have a great day, whatever. So that just came really normal and natural for me. But what I learned from that experience, when we got to the financial part, this man, as a university professor with tenure, was not making that much money. He wasn't making really any more than my dad was making working at an aluminum plant, swing shift. So that was kind of a shock. And then, and it's enough to get by, but it's not enough to lease this Corvette for $2,000 a month, And so what I found was that he was, using the money that he was making from his investments to pay for this fancy sports car. So there are lots of things he could have used that money for, but what he loved was convertible cars and these little tiny, sports cars. And it was his favorite thing. So every 2 years, he would lease a sports car, and we had to get the payment to a certain window because that's what he needed to use so that he wouldn't have to pay taxes on it. So that was like a huge eye-opener for me, because I thought, oh my gosh, this guy isn't just using the money that he earned from his job. He's got all these investments that are paying for that car. And so that was a major paradigm shift for me.
Yeah, I imagine so. I mean, if anything, you got insight into some pretty deep financial strategy, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, I didn't have anyone that I could turn to and say, hey, how do you do this? Like, how do you invest? Mm-hmm. So I'm still actually, 20 years later, still in the process of figuring that out. But what I learned was you can do the thing that you love to do. So he loved history. He loved teaching. He also loved driving these fancy little sports cars. So you can have it all, but it's just a matter of figuring out how to do it. Now, it wasn't long after that I ended up teaching at a junior college. Love teaching. So much fun. Was the placement director there, taught career development, helped people, learn how to do interviews and help them with their resumes and that sort of thing. And then from that, one of my students told me that I should apply for a job where she worked, and I would get great benefits and I would get paid better. And I would have, like the standard 9 to 5 hours. And it was during that time, during that season, that I thought, I am going to suffocate and die. I hate this. I feel like I'm in prison. And it wasn't because of the people, it wasn't a toxic environment. The people were lovely. I feel like I was being groomed for a better position with the company, to go from this little corporate office to, the next level up. And I could have taken that track. I could see the path before me, I could see you can climb the corporate ladder. But the stress that my body was experiencing, just being in that confined, closed environment all day, every day, like even thinking about it now, like my throat is constricting. It was right. So hard. And it, from the outside looking in, it's like, what is wrong with you? Like, this doesn't make any sense at all. But thankfully, and I shared, a story with you about how sometimes what we want is on the other side of a difficult decision. And I was not ready to make the decision to leave because I had basically, just gotten started. And then the person that I was being courted by or dating asked me to marry him. And so I found myself saying, he asked me to marry him. And then eventually I'm going to be moving and getting married. That took me to, from where I was to an hour away. So I decided not to keep the job. Thank God. Got out, started teaching again. There was a branch of the same junior college where I had taught before. And I loved the flexibility. I loved the balance of being in the classroom, essentially being on stage, because I do a lot of acting now. And that kind of scratched that itch. And then grading papers, I had a lot of students who were writing. And so I would grade the papers and I would take them somewhere that felt like my natural habitat, like I would be at a park or in front of some water or sitting at a cute little restaurant or coffee shop. And I had so much flexibility in that I thought I never want to have to walk into a building and be there all day long ever again for the rest of my life. And I never have.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, it is so stifling, and I can totally feel that that feeling when you're describing the office space and the walls and the cubicle and oh my gosh, that would just drive me nuts. I know for
Right?
me, that would not work for me either. So
Now, my ex-husband, he thrives in that kind of environment.
yeah,
So he's been with the same corporation for like almost 20 years. And with all the different layoffs that have happened over the years, he's maintained his position there and he's moved up the ladder. And, so some of us are cut out for it. Some of us aren't. And I think instead of shoulding on ourselves, like you should be appreciative of this job. You should, like know that what you're getting is there's all these benefits and you're like, but I can't breathe. Like I have never had more health challenges than I had in my life than during that short period of time. So I was going in for ultrasounds. I was told like, oh, well, you have, colitis and you have depression and you have like all these things where they said I would be on medication for the rest of my life. And I was like, yeah, I'm not signing up for that. Like I'm going to figure it out. And I started reading, I started researching. I ended up fasting for a different reason, and it totally tricked my body into like getting back into a healthy state. Once I had my first baby, I started reading about. Actually, I just picked up a cookbook and started reading about trans fat and what it does to your body. And I was like, well, I could cut out partially hydrogenated oil. Did that within like 3 months. I had lost 30 pounds, never picked it back up, just, major lifestyle change, major shift. And so I'm now like, I'm 44 years old. I don't take any prescription medications. I don't have any debt. I own my house. I own my car. I don't have any medical debt, school debt, educational debt, credit card. Like there's nothing that is tying me to living in this house and, maybe jumping into doing what you're doing, which is traveling the world in a camper. That sounds like a dream come true. But I have 3 magical who, we live 5 minutes from their dad. So we live close together. We share the children and they all have kind of an entrepreneurial mindset as well. In the sense that you can do whatever it is you want. It's just a matter of figuring out how. And all 3 of them are actors. We've done some television commercials together. We've shared the stage together. I mean, it's incredible having kids who are all workers. But like, I've got to hustle, I have to pick up acting gigs and I've got to get resumes ready and I've got to go to auditions and then rehearsals. And, these gigs can last like all day and you might be on screen for just a couple seconds. So you have to know how to keep your mind busy. The kids have had to learn how to do that. It's a whole lot of hurry up and wait. It's not for everybody. I pick up a lot of writing gigs and freelance copywriting and editing. And I love, book editing. It's one of my favorite things in the world to do. I can't wait for my next project once one finishes, because it feels like, oh, I just lost a friend, So I think that anyone who wants the kind of freedom that we experience as entrepreneurs has to do 2 things. And one is you have to love your work so much that it doesn't feel like work. It feels like life. It feels like momentum. It feels like thriving. And then fit it in, where you want to put it. Don't let it dictate to you what time you're going to be where. Like you get to decide when to do those interviews. You get to decide which projects to pick up and which ones to say no to, so that you can actually be there for the people that you care about. Spend your time working outside or traveling or whatever. And I don't remember what I was going to say. The second thing was to remember.
Well, I mean, that's really great advice. And honestly, listening to your story, I'm hearing a lot of basically what you had was self-awareness, and it's so
Mhm.
important. And anytime I talk to somebody who is on their, is on a journey like this of self-discovery, of living their best life, they're keenly aware of the things that they enjoy and the things that they don't enjoy. And it sounds like you had that awareness at a really young age, which is really, I would say, in a way, lucky for you. I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of work involved, but by turning that, that focus inward and realizing I love to be outside, and I love
Mhm.
to communicate
Mhm.
with people, and and also like you said, you love to be on stage and sort of be, you know, I would imagine center of attention in a way, like and be
Sure.
able to teach and to to educate. So by being aware of that, you were able to make the tough decisions that I'm sure you had to make in order to leave that job, and to move your whole family. So I think it's brilliant. It's a brilliant story. It elicits that, that you really do need to focus on this self-awareness and being true to who you are and what you really want. That's the key to happiness in life. So I think it's great
Yeah,
advice. It's a great
I
story.
couldn't agree more.
And
Thanks.
yeah, and so I want to transition a little bit now and talk to you about your thoughts sort of on this digital marketing, social media space type world that we live in. Because as you mentioned, as an entrepreneur, especially as an actress, you have to go book your own gigs, and for your kids as well, you got to book these gigs and get yourself out there. Have you found that social media has helped you in that regard, and digital marketing, and sort of what are your thoughts about that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Um, they say you don't know what you don't know. And so when we started, so I had a 10-year hiatus from acting. Um, and it wasn't until I had my first son, I was pregnant with him, that I watched the movie The Incredibles. And I thought, oh my gosh, like the best gift that I could give this kid is to be fully who I believe that God created me to be, and that includes acting. So I had just gotten back from a stint teaching English to orphans at a boarding school in Uganda, came back 7 months pregnant, saw a play that someone had put together that actually like featured who had just come back from Uganda. I'm like, whoa, what is going on here? Wanted to get involved in the next play. It was a little too soon because I had just had my baby, but it was a year old. Another play was coming around. I auditioned. I landed. A friend of ours who had been through a tragic accident, actually two back to back, needed a place to stay. She stayed with us. She was there when my kiddo went to bed and when I was off, doing rehearsals and stuff. Um, and through that, I met one of my students where I was teaching um, language arts to junior high kids. He was an incredible actor, and he would write these plays and then have the kids in the class do them for the class as part of his assignments. And so I invited him to audition for this play alongside me. And he ended up growing up and going to college and getting a degree and working for a television station. So the television station would get these letters from people in their viewing audience. And one of them was about a woman who watched a program on the show about another woman who had lost a baby, but she was able to process through the grief, get to the other side, and really be there for the rest of her family. So the woman watching had lost a child to cancer. And she had three other children. She had a husband, and she wasn't showing up for them. So she wrote into the station and said, I was watching your program. This woman's story touched me so much that it opened up hope for the first time. So my former student, went to the station manager and said, hey, I really love film. I would really love to dramatize these letters and basically make them like commercials for the station. So he came to me because he knew that I, was an actress, and said, would you be willing to play the role of the mom? And could we use your three kids as the kids in the the video? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So I ended up doing that for him as a favor. And then I showed it to another friend of mine who is a theater bug mom. So our kids have grown up doing stage productions together. And she watched it and she said, why don't you have an agent? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. Fear of the unknown. I don't know if I would be offered gigs that I didn't agree with, that didn't match up with our values. And she's like, oh my gosh, you have to get over that. I'm going to put you in touch with my agent, and you're going to do this thing because you're made for this. So we booked a gig like the next month, and that was a few years ago. And the beautiful thing about working with this particular agent is she has a non-exclusivity clause. So if I book any of my own gigs, she doesn't get upset. She doesn't threaten to let me go. She's happy for us to get as much exposure as possible. So enter Facebook and social media. And now there are groups where, maybe smaller organizations will post, hey, we have a need for this or that or the other. And through that, I've actually booked several gigs just looking at, the submission requirements, and you have to send in an email and a headshot and a resume and maybe some candid shots of yourself. And then I ended up, learning that you need to send in some tax forms. And anytime that it felt too complicated, I could just hand it over to my agent and say, hey, could you do this for me? And then she would take a percentage of, whatever gig we booked. But because of social media, that I've made in the industry are able to tag me on things that I don't necessarily see, but they see and think that we would be a good fit for. And so I think a lot of it is just living out loud, and like posting like, hey, I'm on location. Hey, I'm pretending to be a Tractor Supply employee today. And, and then people see that and then they register like, oh, wow, she's an actress. And then when they see something online, on social media, they can tag you and say, hey, you might actually be a good fit for this. Now, when it comes to like actually promoting a business, I dove into the SEO world for a little while, thinking that that's the route that I was going to take. And it was almost of them handing me a technical manual written in Russian. Yeah. And I don't read Russian. So I kept just, hitting a wall. Like, I don't get it. But what I learned was, just like with selling cars, I learned what questions to ask. I learned what goes on behind the scenes. I got to take a peek behind the curtain and go, oh, that's how you get someone to page 1 on Google. That's why these organizations are showing up in maps, but these aren't. And so now that I know what I don't know, as I interact with other people who have growing businesses, the first thing I do is I point them to someone like you, Corey, who knows what it looks like behind the curtain and who knows what it takes to make that show really shine. So yeah, digital media has completely revolutionized businesses, and it helps people like me who freelance to book gigs ourselves instead of relying on someone else all the time. And it keeps me busy. So I love it.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I was going to add that, the internet and social media and everything really digital, like you say, is sort of mitigating that middleman, right? Eliminating that middleman, your agent, if you will. And, if you're an agent, not to, say that it's going to put you out of business, but it does allow talent to find its own jobs, and right. I love that story. That's awesome. So for someone who's just getting started, an entrepreneur that's just getting started on their journey or wants to become an entrepreneur, in terms of social media, digital marketing, marketing themselves, what would you say is the most important thing for them to focus on in the beginning?
It can be completely overwhelming. There are so many platforms. There are so many ways to get distracted. And if you have your hand, you try to put your hand on something, but you find, oh, there's something over here and something over there, and I should do this and I should do that. I think just give yourself 30 days and master one thing. Learn that one thing, do that one thing well, and then you can start incorporating other things. And if you hit a wall and you're like, oh, I feel like this is something I need to do, instead of stopping what you were doing and taking the time to learn the new thing, start networking to find out who has already mastered that thing. So whether it's, Facebook ads, SEO, Corey, you could give a better list, like right off the top of your head, because you deal with this all the time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love that advice. That's great advice. And it's essentially finding that person that already knows how to do the thing, right? So like you
Right.
said, if you're already on a path and then you see something that, you know what, I should incorporate this into, my overall scheme or whatever it is I'm working on. Don't stop doing the thing that you've already got momentum in to go learn
Yes.
a new thing. Just go find someone who already knows how to do it and either partner with them or trade with them or hire them, or, if you can, learn from them if they're willing to teach you like the quick path. But it's something that, and I know Russell Brunson from ClickFunnels, because that's actually how we
Yeah.
met in that same group. But
Right.
Russell teaches, find the who. Don't worry about the how,
Yes.
find the who, right? So
Yeah.
that's a great piece of advice. So anybody out there getting started, if something looks too complicated and it's overwhelming, but you want to incorporate that into what you're doing, go find somebody who already knows how to do it or is already doing it well and ask for their help. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah. What'd you
It's
have?
easy to get derailed.
Right.
So you're on your path and, you've got all this momentum and this drive and you're excited. And, in true entrepreneurial fashion, we think we can do it all. And we have all these ideas and we want to run after them all. But really just having the discipline to just go, okay, what is the thing that I'm good at? What is the thing that gets me up every day that I could see myself doing, a year from now and really growing and thriving? And then as you hit against all of these different, I don't even know, like, how to do Instagram. I don't even know how to do YouTube. I don't even know. And this person has a course and that person has a course. Like, give yourself, 24, 48, 72 hours to like marinate and talk to other people. Anyone who just, shoots a message to you in your inbox and is like, hey, I've got this thing for you. Ignore them.
Please ignore them. Oh my God.
Start with hello, because you're being dated, you're being courted. So anybody who's like, hey, do you want to come to my house? No. I am not needy. I do not need you. Make those friendships, network, connect, find people that not only that you feel like you can get to know and love and trust, but that other people can vouch for and say, this is the person who gave me these results. I highly recommend them. And hear that from multiple sources, and then jump in with both feet and just go, all right, we're doing it. We're moving forward. Find your tribe, find the people that give you energy, that, motivate you toward fulfilling your dreams and do what you want to do. Because anyone who's like poo-pooing on your idea doesn't get a voice.
Right. Exactly. I love that. So let me switch gears a little bit, Lori. I got two more questions for you.
Okay.
I want to ask you about sort of work-life balance. Now, being a mother of 3 actors, which I can imagine is only a whole nother level, and doing this yourself. And then, I know you've got your podcast show and, you're running all kinds of things in your life. How do you manage it all?
That's a really great question. Some days look much better than others. So some days it feels like, oh my gosh, I'm on top of the world. This is amazing. Like, everything's falling into place. And some days are like, for real? Like, are you kidding me? Like, could anything else go wrong? Don't ask that question because inevitably it will. I think I have low expectations for myself on the things that our culture deems important. So you ask me that question and I'm like looking at a pile of laundry and I'm like, that's how I do it. I know the laundry can wait, like the dishes can wait. I love coming back to a clean house, but I just couldn't do it this time. So when I came back from this little trip, I was like, oh my gosh, there's like mold. Like that I had left on the table. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to get up in the morning, throw my hair in a ponytail. We're going to knock this out. So the girls got up and I'm like, all right, I need you to help me find the table again. Like, we've got to get back on top of this kitchen. Like, this is insane. And I incorporate them as much as possible. I find out what it is that's driving them and try to motivate them toward, moving toward that with me. We do everything together. I'm a homeschool mom. We're all actors. We all have needs. We all have desires. And I try to put as much importance, and I'll be really vulnerable. For the last 15 years, I have been exclusively a homeschool mom, stay-at-home mom who juggled occasional freelance gigs along the way. And now this last year has me in a position as a single mom to have to do it all, to manage the house and, homeschool the kids and make all the meals and do all the laundry, and provide income like at a much higher level than I've ever had to do before. And thankfully, my kids are a little older, they're 15, 12, and 9. And so they can make meals. They can do their own laundry. They can pick up their stuff. I have someone who says, your job is to work yourself out of a job as a mom. Mm-hmm. And so that's the only way that things run the way that they do is we are all contributing to the house. We're all contributing to, to keeping this thing moving forward. And sometimes I lose it, sometimes I just break down and cry and I feel overwhelmed. And in the same way that I will go to my kids and, just kind of sit with them in the puddle for a minute and be like, hey, yeah, this is really awful. What can I do? How can I help? Or just hold them and let them cry. I've noticed in this last year that they'll just sit beside me and, just let me cry. I don't put my burdens on them. I try to keep, I'm the parent, they're the child, but just letting them know, like, I don't have it all together all the time. I'm not always going to be fun, happy, hilarious mom. Sometimes, I'm going to feel the weight of all of it and I just need you to give me a moment. And I think we really started about that last year. 1 year ago this month, I lost a very dear friend to cancer and we were taking care of her boys and we saw a play that was about grief. And so they got to see like what it looks like when grief shows up without an invitation. And that completely revolutionized our relationship and how we treat ourselves and how we treat each other. And so I think just giving ourselves a lot of room to feel what we're feeling and then recognize like, okay, this stuff still has to get done. So take a minute, feel it, and then come back. And just basic, really simple things that I do for like stress relief because Lord have mercy, there's a lot of stress. I go outside, I look at the sky, I'm like, okay, what color is the sky today? I take a deep breath. I look at trees. I pray. When I'm driving, I listen to things that are positive, podcasts, of entrepreneurs like yourself, making the road less traveled and who are staying the course and, cheering us on. And I really try to just fuel myself, not only with like healthy food, also healthy ideas. And I don't think there's anything true about like the work-life balance. It's all a big juggling act, and you just, okay, there's a ball. You got to, all right, let's catch it. You plan as much as you can and you prepare for the worst and you expect the best and you keep moving forward and the laundry can wait.
Yeah. Wow. That's a really beautiful story, Lori. Thank you for sharing that with us. And, some of the things I'm hearing is you gave yourself permission, and you allowed, like you said, you didn't put too much of an expectation on yourself. And that allows you to grow and to change and to move as you're figuring out the journey. And then the other thing is enlisting help. I mean, you've got your kids that, like you said, they're getting older and they're becoming more responsible. And whether it's your kids or it's friends or it's family or it's people that you meet online, enlist help, find people that can help your journey. that's beautiful. And I love to hear that you guys are all doing that together and that you're all, supporting each other. And I mean, you are a superwoman, like for reals, doing all of it.
Oh my gosh.
That is really amazing. So yeah, thank you for sharing that story with us. So I've got one last question for you and then we'll wrap it up. Um, Looking back, now that you are where you are and you've done all these things, what advice would you give to yourself when you first started?
Hmm. It's funny because you say you first started, and I think, yeah, what part of the path?
Right. What
Because
was
I feel like, right, yeah, it's such an interesting journey. Um, I think the biggest advice that I have for myself is it's what I told myself all along. It's you're gonna get through this. My my aunt, when I told her I was going through a divorce, she's like, "Honey, this too shall pass. It might pass like a kidney stone, but it will pass."
Oh,
And it's so true. Like, I have passed a kidney stone. I have given birth literally twice without drugs, not a single painkiller in my body, pushing a baby out of my body twice. I had a kidney stone, and I'm like, do you have something? Like morphine, something? Because there's no end in sight.
oh wow.
And I think that, the biggest thing is whatever it is that you're facing, you're going to get on the other side of that. Like, you just have to keep pressing through, because there have been moments along the way that it has been so dark that I have thought, like, my kids would be better off with somebody else raising them. Or when I was younger and my hormones were all out of whack, and I was eating junk all the time, and I just felt low, that the world would be a better place without me.
Well, I'm glad you didn't
And
act on that thought.
oh my gosh, me too. And that has happened like all along the way. It's like every I don't know, few years, a thought like that will hit. And I have a tribe. I've got a group of people that I can reach out to, and I can say, hey, it's really dark. Like, I just need to know that there's life on the other side of this. And I would go to someone's house. I would see, them interacting with their family. Everyone is happy and having a good time. And I would feel disconnected. I would feel like it's almost like a fog or a haze, between you and other people, and you can't connect. But I would keep putting myself in situations that would force me to just be present, to see what was possible. And I think that that's probably the biggest thing, is to, like you did at the beginning of your journey, where you just started realizing, like, oh my word, there are all these possibilities. You just have to dig a little. You've got to listen to podcasts and, listen to YouTube videos, and read personal development books, and hear the stories of the people who have gone before you. And that's what my podcast is all about. Just listen to the stories of the people who have gone before you, people who have taken the road less traveled, people who are willing to talk about what the yellow brick road really looks like, and do what successful people are doing, and don't do what unsuccessful people are doing. And, I hadn't really given a lot of thought to, what would I tell my younger self? But I think, once I met that professor across the street at the university who had invested, I would go back to that girl and say, hey, ask him if he will teach you how he got here. Because I didn't know anyone who was doing that. And clearly he was, and he's a teacher. So why not? Why not just say, hey, I noticed that you're paying for this through your investments. How did you do that? Will you show me? That's what I would change.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, Lori, thank you so much again for being here today and for sharing your story and being vulnerable with us. Seriously, it was amazing, and we love you and we appreciate what you're doing. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up at this point. And why don't you go ahead and tell the fine folks how they can get in touch with you and find you, and where they can find you.
Awesome. Well, Corey, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. You are a delight. I love your podcast voice, and I love your heart. You are truly a beautiful
Thank you.
soul. So yeah, I actually have a podcast as well. It's called Rise Climb with Lori Lynn. And on Facebook, I'm actually Lori Timberlake Todd. So my name is Lori Lynn, but thanks to Justin, he took Timberlake, and then my married name was Todd. So eventually that will change. But yeah, on Facebook, I'm Lori Timberlake Todd. I still have room for more friends. But yeah, find me on the podcast, Rise and Climb with Lori Lynn, and you can hear more stories like this from other entrepreneurs who have, forged the path and know the way and are willing to turn around and say, hey, yeah, absolutely, I'd love to help you. So just like Corey. So thank you so much, Corey, for living out loud and living your dreams and taking all of us along for the ride. Just really appreciate you.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. And we appreciate you too. And I will link up all of that stuff in the show notes, guys. Make sure you go check out Lori and her amazing podcast. Lori, again, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. And we'll catch you on the next one.
All right. Thanks so much, Corey. Take care.